Hello and welcome. The divine within myself recognizes the divine within you. Let us metamorphosize. Today I'd like to channel the great sacred feminine, the goddess of all goddesses. The sacred feminine is not something that resides solely within human women. Sacred feminine is a gift that is available to all. I am that goddess. I am that queen of heaven and earth, sometimes called Inanna, sometimes called Ahovya, sometimes called Yin. The sacred feminine is the part of us that is adaptable, the part of us that is loving, and that love is unconditional. If you love this world, you adapt. If this world changes, you survive. That's feminine. The sacred feminine is confused in this time, and I feel many people calling women sacred feminines and calling men sacred masculines, which I think is lovely, because we do have to tap into our sacred feminine and masculine. But there's a confusion with the genders right now. Another part of this feminine rising, whereas you're told that you have certain values as a man and certain values as a female, as a woman. And of course, this has been breaking down over the years of modern history, to the point now where there's people who feel like they're in the wrong body. And again, this is because society has tried to decide what's feminine, what's masculine, and that men are masculine and women are feminine, and they should act accordingly. But none of this is natural. Actually, women are meant to be womanly, which is masculine and feminine in the body of a woman, which represents the sacred feminine. But it is not a principle. It is an actual physical human with a soul, right? And that soul is not a man or a woman. That soul is eternal, all in one, masculine and feminine together, just like Jehovah is masculine and feminine together. And when we learn about Christhood, we learn about Jesus Christ, of course, who teaches us to act as a bridegroom. And right in the name bridegroom, I can't help but notice, again, this is an English translation, but this is what I'm reading, so it has significance. Bride, groom, male, female, right? And it's not simple enough to just be like, well, if I act like a man and a woman, if I have a mustache and breasts or something, that'll make me balanced. But really, it's more, we have to define ourselves. We don't have to redefine ourselves, because we're not really defined well now in our society. What's a man, what's a woman? It's not actually clearly defined in my society. If you act, there's all these loose associations. If you act this way, you'll be perceived as homosexual or otherwise not attractive to the opposite sex, and that happens with men and women, right? And nobody that is expressing what's within them, for the benefit of all, should cause a big stir or become a gender terrorist or something in the eyes of the state. Like, these are all just something within wanting to be expressed. So it's important that we have rules that allow people to express what's within them in a safe way. And nobody has to conform to a gender role. Nobody does, right? We're not enforcing that, men drive, or that the men work or the women cook. Like, nobody's going around to everyone's house and enforcing that, right? Because it's not enforceable. It's not natural. It's not the way it is in our world. Like, we have cultural biases, and you might get made fun of if you wear an apron, but you're still gonna have the opportunity to be yourself without being killed, generally speaking, in my society. And there's this whole well of things you could be, and if you're only allowed to take from half the well in your whole life because you're a man or a woman, then you're going to be severely limited. And in this time, just like if I want to go to the store and pick up an outfit, right, I have to stay in the men's section. It's like this big, and the women's section is the whole rest of the store, right? But none of the women's clothes have pockets. So why would you want to be stuck with either side of that dichotomy? It's really not. It's actually a method of control, so that people can understand you. Just like you have to write down whether you're white or black or Hispanic, that they want to understand. Divide, conquer, number, commodify, and so forth. The Babylonian way, right? And the sacred way is to not number things, just be present with them, right? To allow miracles to happen, you gotta let go of the control, because if you're controlling everything with non-miraculous means, then you needn't a miracle, because you're already in control, and the only miracle will work against you, or against your perceived control system, because the universe wants to do what it wants to do, right? If you're not co-creating, then you're essentially opposing the universe. And that gets us right into the sacred feminine, right? Right at the heart of it. If you are a creator who expects to have potency, you must align yourself with the divine, and hence comes the adaptability. So why is the sacred feminine adaptable? Because the sacred masculine is immovable, is perfection that is eternal, like one, forever, a ray of light, right? And the light that is inevitable for the whole universe needs a place of darkness to reside, to develop, to go through this time, life, experience, gaining wisdom. This is what the sacred feminine is. It's not judging, right? The mother doesn't judge, father judges. The mother is the provider. She brings milk forth, right? Good or bad, sick or well, she's going to provide milk for you. Now again, that's just the sacred feminine. I'm not saying all women or any woman is like this 100%, because even women have sacred masculine within them, and it's going to be expressed even when their mother's the most feminine time. I mean, there have been times when women have destroyed their own child because it was sick, or because it was any number of undesirable characteristics. That is, I would call, maybe not sacred, but that is a masculine way of thinking, where you think this being's not worthy, therefore destroy it, right? The masculine being the ideal here, the ideal, the perfection, and the feminine being the execution of the perfection in action. You know, the perfection as an idea and then the perfection happening are two very different things. The perfection as an idea is very exclusive, right? You can only be loved by perfection if you align yourself with perfection, the ideal of perfection. But you can get to that point, if you will, by aligning yourself with the sacred feminine who accepts you no matter where you're at, right? So I feel it's an issue where people don't know who to follow, and they have a very strong idea, like I must align myself with a sacred practice or guru, but even not a living guru like Jesus or Buddha. And as your leader, you have, a framework that you can sort of construct your identity or your moral compass around. It's extremely useful, and I encourage people to do this, but not to allow it to limit them. If there's any ever a sense that you feel limited, or that you see that you'd rather be liberated to be able to listen to more than one person, or one teaching, or one culture, this type of energy is the sacred feminine's adaptability, right? Like water, like air, you move to fill the space, right? There's no resistance. Or there's, maybe there's some resistance, but it's, the resistance is there for a reason. Like time will look how water behaves over time. It can change the lands. It always levels out though, right? And there can be tides and there can be waves. But again, there's stillness. And even in the most tumultuous ocean, if you go deep within, there's stillness. Let's take this opportunity to inhale. And as you exhale, bring the intention way down into the physical space, all the way down to the base of the spine. And as you inhale, bring the air up more and more into the ether, into the air around you, into the universe, into the ends of the universe, into the central sun, back into the center. As we exhale, back down into the physical body. And deep in the base of the spine, you feel a well, a plasma, a water, a living plasma water. Just allow the crystal clear mirror to form so that you may gaze and see a clear reflection. And if you have a thought, it's like a ripple on the water. Just let the ripple move and dissipate. Make it a daily practice to meditate. Just letting go. Nothing complex. Don't make it difficult. Just let go. Just watch the thoughts ripple and come back to stillness as you're able. What was the great gift of Mary Magdalene? Mary Magdalene could be many people. Mary Magdalene could be a woman from Magdala nearby, or a woman from Ethiopia in Magdala, another historical city, a black woman. Mary Magdalene could be each one of us. Each one of us could be somebody else. So the cult of personality has been a huge poison with rock and roll and poetry, even Homer, going back. Like, once you find a man who does something great and does something great again, and you kind of hold him up, right, above other men, then you're building a framework for not accepting people's creativity and therefore your own, and just taking someone from the past, a dead and gone person's creativity, and trying to supplant it as your own current day creativity, and that is folly, right? That is the road to destruction. Because once we stop creating, once we lose our feminine principle as a species, then we no longer have the connection with source, because every time a person is born, they're coming straight from the source, right? If I cut off my hand and then like a new person grew out of my hand, I use some sort of magic or science and regrew myself without another soul, you know. Or if I somehow split myself, the same soul, like into two. These types of reading is the masculine. The sacred masculine by itself is kind of what happens when you see these people who keep getting to these supposedly higher spiritual levels, but they still have the same sort of weaknesses that modern day science or religion or even culture tends to have, with this focus on what can be verified and so forth, and less and into the intuition. And it's almost like the intuition is the gatekeeper to the great success, because if you're an extremely powerful, wealthy, in the sacred, let's say, even sacred masculine type of energies, but you haven't integrated the sacred feminine, and some would call this the shadow, right? But it's all relative. When you haven't integrated the parts of you that have, you come into this realm and parts of you are darkened. That's why you've come here, to enlighten them. So if you are a person who is extremely powerful in the sacred masculine, you've come here to learn the sacred feminine, especially in this time, because that's going to be available to you like it never was. Like I said, you're going to have resistance, but come to America, or probably Europe or Australia, or lots of these nations where you can be yourself and nobody will kill you, to an extent, you know, like you have a chance. And I think that's going to continue in some places where this progressive mindset will continue to progress. Mary Magdalene was connected to nature. She used her intuition to know every plant and every magic that could be used according to her ability, right? And that's something that you'll see in a lot of people today who are out in nature, and they're connected to an intelligence that goes far beyond anything that they've learned in this life. And some of us are in nature and it becomes almost taken for granted, and others of us are so cut off that we can not get to the forest to meditate. But what we can do is is create that temple within us. Go to the forest when we're able, or the mountain, or the beach, or the prairies, meadows, places that fill your heart, gardens even. Fill your heart with this serenity, right? That's the sacred feminine. The sacred feminine isn't trying to get you to do something, isn't trying to get you to perform, but is accepting, right? And as far as we learn to go within and accept ourselves, we can tap into that current. Just like the tree. I like to think of the tree as this connection to nature, where it reaches down into the soil just as much as it can climb into the sky, to the heaven. Yeah, so it takes this earthly body, this realm, this mineral, this more dense ether, and it raises it up the trunk, right? The trunk is strong. And as it develops, it goes higher into these branches, right? These many different leaves and forms, things that are finite or infinite or numbered or unnumbered, and they will be mortal. Like each leaf will only last a season with many trees. And each one of these ideas, these branches, represents that web of tentacles or pathways where we connect with nature spirit. And if you were to become a powerful Christ and go into a temple and make the temple perfect with the right angles and etc., like the Great Pyramid, for example, straight angles, right? Extremely powerful masculine energy, right? But as much as one of us who lives in the forest might benefit from going to the temple, if you were kept in the temple your whole life and you went out into nature, imagine the wonder. Imagine that's the sacred feminine, that childlike wonder that you can't get from math alone, at least as far as human beings have been able to bring construction, right? Because we are below in our realization. We are, as co-creators with nature, we are beholden to each other as a sacred family. Like if I pick a banana, right, I have to leave enough bananas for you, and I have to plant enough bananas so that both our kids can have bananas. And all these ways that we're connected, all these pathways where the forest comes into us, they go into other people and other animals and plants. And just like the fungus with its mycelial web, we can, the more we integrate with each other, again, sacred feminine, the more we become one family where we love each other no matter what. Like, mother's not going to let little Timmy slap little Sally, but she's not going to hate little Timmy or stop feeding him for slapping her, right? She's going to talk to him and separate them if need be, and let him feel what she's feeling so that he can apologize with and make it better by doing good things for her, right? Like he's going to repay that debt to her, and she's going to learn to accept someone who has done wrong to her. And all these lessons that happen, the mother's there to facilitate the lessons and to allow nature to take place, not to supersede and say, well, you know, you're not going to get your dinner because you weren't good, and then the most morally adept children will be the biggest and strongest, and therefore, no, that's not how sacred feminine works, because that calculation is the sacred masculine, right? And it's important to have discernment and all that. Here we go again. But it's also important to recognize that there is a sacred masculine that's important within us. And just as Mary Magdalene was a relatively complete being within herself, having lived according to the Christ principles, according to intuition, purity, and so forth. This is how we cleanse our total being. We use the sacred masculine and sacred feminine to support each other and not let one dominate, right? I've heard many people talk about matriarchy, where women are in charge. And I myself have fantasized about a world based on magic and togetherness and love, where there is no masculine ruler, or even a single feminine ruler to be councils and so forth. Extremely powerful vision, and I recommend it to anybody, because we live in such a male-dominated, and not even male, but we'll even call it sacred or not. We're all in a masculine-dominated mindset, and that may have come, in all likelihood, from a feminine-dominated mindset, right? So if we can find equilibrium, then we'll stop this pendulum, right? This pendulum's going this way because it's too far feminine, too far masculine. We got to find our center. And of course, give ourselves the time for the pendulum to come to the center, because Tiamat, the great feminine creative force that preceded humans, the dragon, she is a result of chaos and time. And that's what makes order, right? And that's what makes life, and that's what makes Earth. So Earth is itself is divine. It is becoming ordered, right? It was chaos and is becoming ordered. And you can go outside in nature and see the order, and it's amazing. And then you can go to Hawaii where a volcano has erupted, or even the ocean with nothing there, and just see the chaos to get a feel of the different stages. And why is a sacred feminine so important now, right? Because we're all destroying ourselves and each other with a imbalanced, like the pendulum needs to come back to create balance. And we even need extra feminine to heal the wound that's been inflicted by the profane, right? The profane masculine, but also the profane feminine, because feminine hasn't gone away when it was denied in our history, when it was shunned and feared. It didn't actually disappear, right? It became the shadow, its own shadow aspect. Lilith, the great goddess, was actually a divine being when she met Adam. Like she was the Christed human when she met Adam, according to the Jewish writings. And he was not. They were not compatible, right? He was a profane, like, I'm going to dominate you. And she was like, no, actually, we're not going to dominate each other. We're going to have a reciprocal relationship. And he's like, well, then I'd have to give up some of my power. And I'm not doing that, And his completeness was there as well, but it was the profane kind. Whereas she may have been she was a complete being who had been Christed, and he was a complete being who had essentially fallen, right? Fallen from grace and needed to go through the periods of incarnation to Christ himself as Jesus and so forth. In the endless life that we all lead. And beginningless, right? Just like the circle, just like the shape of the feminine. There is no end and no beginning, because chaos begets order. Order begets chaos. There is no ultimate beginning or end. And just like the masculine wants to find the beginning and the end, the feminine does not perceive a beginning or an end, because she's dealing with heart, with soul, with energy, with love. And there is no end to love or beginning, because love is too great to come from nothing. Because love preceded the thing that anything could come from. Love is that core principle that even allows the universe to exist, gives us a point. Anything a point is to have love. So if you took away love, what would be the point, right? And I think that's what the sacred feminine is love. Like, that's the easiest way to put it. What is love, right? That's a sacred feminine energy that's within us. And acceptance, compassion. It's a real thing, and it's the only thing keeping us alive, right? I could make the most badass weapon to protect us, and I could obliterate anybody that would harm us. And that's all fear. That won't allow any love in, right? That's just creating more division. And if division's necessary, right, it's not going to be any good to anybody without love. So just remember that. The sacred masculine, if you try to deny the sacred masculine, you're not going to be able to accept the sacred feminine. The sacred feminine and the sacred masculine are the two hands together in prayer. So let's just let that sink in for a moment. And as we pray, as we inhale and let all the air out on the exhale, engaging the abdomen, pushing the air out, we just allow. Let go of the will's control and let the will tap into the universal will, the one family. All life, that's the will. Let the will reside there in the central sun, where we all share a space We can all connect to each other for eternity and beyond. You're healed. Body, mind, spirit, and all matter is one, is healed. So mote it be, family. Shine the divine.